Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to yet another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And I have some good news in this week's episode. Well, it's good news for me. It's actually slightly bad news for you. As I'm sure many of you are probably aware, I want to say recently, but it was well over 2 months ago at this point, made an offer on a property. I had my 52nd birthday last week, and my whole life I've lived in either Navy or rented accommodation, which means that this is going to be the first place I've ever actually owned. So those of you who've been following Mingles with Jingles will be aware that I made the offer on this property just before the new year. Just after the new year, the offer was accepted, and then it got to the point where the lawyers got involved. And then for slightly more than 2 months, absolutely nothing happened. Or so I thought. Turned out that the lawyers were actually doing quite a lot of work. They just weren't telling me about it until it was done. Because last week I received the conveyancer's report, and it was a 2-inch thick pile of paperwork. I mean, they went into ludicrous amounts of detail. I mean, if there was the tiniest detail that could have possibly affected the sale, they investigated it and produced a comprehensive report on it. The long and the short of it all is that on March the 22nd, all of this is going to be mine. Well, half of it will be mine, half of it will belong to the bank. But in theory, in principle, this will be mine. I signed the paperwork, I exchanged contracts, they give me the keys. This is mine, March 22nd. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to be moving in on March the 22nd. And this is kind of where the bad news starts. Because, well, for a start, because I had no idea when I was going to be getting the keys. It could have been the middle of May, for all I knew. I mean, for the lawyers to get all of their stuff done in 2 months in this country, that's really fast. I realise things work differently in other countries, but here in the UK, 3 months is the average time that it takes for the conveyancing lawyers to get their shit together. And that's assuming everything goes well. When my friend Eddie was buying his place, it took 6 months, because after 3 months, it turned out that the lawyers had gotten everything wrong, and they had to start again from scratch. But that's a worst case scenario. 2 months is really, really quick. Unfortunately, it means none of the furniture that I've ordered is going to be ready in time. In fact, probably won't be ready until the middle of April. And also, I need to get an electrician in to add some extra power sockets, wire up some Ethernet. I need to get the internet switched over from my current address to this address. There's all kinds of stuff that I have to do before I can move in. And then the day of actually moving, and the day before, and all the packing, well, I'll say the day before, the week before, and all the packing is going to be an utter nightmare. So we're probably looking at a week or two from March the 22nd, so maybe the beginning of April before I actually move in, and it's a done deal. And that's kind of where the bad news for you guys starts, because it means there is inevitably going to be some kind of disruption to my YouTube video upload schedule. It's going to be completely unavoidable, certainly on the day of the move, because the internet's going to get switched off at one place and then switched off at another, and yes, I hate that mirror, and it's absolutely going to have to go. But you get the idea. There are going to be some disruptions to my service here on YouTube until I can get settled in this place. This is going to be the new studio, by the way. IKEA's going to make a fortune out of me. I was going to hire a carpenter to do it, and then it occurred to me, well, actually, because this is a 3-bedroomed house, and if I turn one of those bedrooms permanently into a sort of study and workroom, it may end up devaluing the property, because then it's a 2-bedroom house. So I thought, yeah, I'll just do IKEA. It'll be fine. Also, way cheaper. So, yeah, that's the situation. I've gone from more than 2 months of just being so frustrated because it looked like absolutely nothing was happening to a week of utter terror when suddenly everything happens at once, and I'm signing documents and I'm writing, well, I'm not writing checks, but I'm spending money. But it's going to be worth it. It's all going to be worth it. I mean, obviously it's going to be worth it. I'll have my own place. It's like, if I want to change something, I just change it. I don't have to ask anybody's permission. The downside, of course, is that if something goes wrong, there's no landlord for me to complain to. But then again, I suppose the upside is if something goes wrong, I don't have to wait around for a landlord to get anything done. I just do it myself, or more realistically, hire somebody to do it for me. Did I mention how scared I am? It's a big responsibility, but it is definitely going to be worth it. I've been saving every penny I've earned for 15 years for this. It had better be worth it. Right, yeah, so that's the situation. Yes, Akazuki, new place, lots of space for you to run around and have zoomies in. I'm sure you're going to love it too. She'd better. She's got no choice in the matter. Well, anyway, moving on swiftly. It's high time we had another episode of dumb shit that Rita said. So, I mentioned it was my 52nd birthday last week. It's because it was. I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever, 10th of March. Same birthday as Osama bin Laden and Chuck Norris. But anyway, Rita came over and I cooked lunch and we sat down and watched a movie. So we watched the Guy Ritchie movie, The Gentleman, starring, amongst others, Matthew McConaughey, Colin Farrell and Charlie Hunnam. And while I was watching, it occurred to me that most Americans probably know Charlie Hunnam either from The Sons of Anarchy or the Pacific Rim movie, and probably didn't realise that he's actually British. In fact, he comes from my neck of the woods up in the northeast. And he has a very distinctive accent, but you never hear it because he puts on an American accent for the majority of his TV and movie work. But in The Gentleman, he's actually using his native accent. And it sounded really weird. And I remarked to Rita that, well, basically that, most Americans would probably find it really, really strange to hear him talking like that, not realising that that's actually how he talks. And I pointed this out to Rita during a scene in the movie where Charlie Hunnam's character is talking to Colin Farrell's character, who plays an Irish boxing coach. So Rita's absorbing this information about how Charlie Hunnam is actually speaking in the movie with his real accent and does a very, very convincing American accent in everything else that he does. And she comes out with, and that Colin Farrell guy does a really, really good Irish accent as well. Now, at this point, I had to stop and think for a second, because not that I didn't realise that Colin Farrell is actually Irish. I mean, I knew that, but there's this thing in the Navy, it's called an easy, and I've introduced Rita to it, and she used to be terrible at it, but she's been getting better and better. And an easy is when you intentionally say something really, really stupid, and then just wait for somebody to correct you, and then you've got them on an easy. Yeah? So I'll look at her, but she's deadly serious. She genuinely thought Colin Farrell was faking. You know, the famous Irish actor, Colin Farrell. She thought he was faking his Irish accent. So that's the dumb shit that Rita said this week. Well, anyway, moving on, although still on the subject of stupid, I got a really interesting email this week. It was from a Mr. Abdullah Hakim. I'll read you it. It says, "Greetings from Dubai. The internet has been grossly abused by scam artists and miscreants. I know, Akazuki, I'm getting there. Whose intention is to hurt, and as much as ones should be careful, same time we should not allow negative to kill the positive potential in a realistic business. Please read my proposal carefully, is 100% risk-free." Sounds good so far, but don't worry. And yes, obviously, you're right, it is. It's a variation on the Nigerian prince scam, which itself is a variation on the Spanish prisoner scam that's been going on for hundreds of years. But, well, you'll see. So, here we go. My name is Mr. Abdullah Hakim, the branch manager, National Bank of Abu Dhabi Al Ain International Airport Cash Office Branch, United Arab Emirates, married with 3 children. He doesn't believe in using punctuation. I am writing this letter to ask for your support and cooperation to carry out this business opportunity in my department. After annual audit last month in my branch, I discovered documents of a late client, Mr. Andreas Schraner, a German business magnate who made a numbered fixed deposit with this branch valued 1 billion United States dollars. Wow. And I was lucky to have the scanned documents with me in save position. I discovered from his contract employers, the Petroleum Corporation, that Mr. Andreas Schraner died in the plane crash Monday 31st of July 2000, an Air France jetliner. It was actually the Concorde crash when it was taken off from Paris. With his entire family and other passengers on board, as you can confirm it yourself via the website below for BBC News. And he provides a convenient link which I, of course, wasn't dumb enough to actually click on, but yes, I am aware that the French Concorde airliner did crash on takeoff from Charles de Gaulle Airport in the year 2000 on the 31st of July, killing everybody on board. According to United Arab Emirates banking law, after the expiration of 14 years, if nobody apply for the claim, it will confiscate as state treasury if nobody apply for the claim. Okay. I am ready to share with you 40% for you and 60% will be kept for me. You will provide offshore account where the funds will be... Hang on a minute. Did he say 14 years? Let me double check. Yep. In fact, he said it twice. 1-4 brackets and then spelled out 14 close brackets. So if nobody claims this money within 14 years of the death of the German businessman who died on the 31st of July 2000, then the government confiscates the money. Dude, do you know what year it is? Oh my god. Well, there goes my $400 million. I could have used that as well. I'm buying a house. What an idiot. And yet I'll bet that there are enough people who fall for it to make it a worthwhile scam. In fact, there must be, because this scam, in one form or another, has been going on for hundreds of years. It was originally a fairly obscure scam known as the Jerusalem Letter, but then it took off in popularity during the Peninsular War in Spain and Portugal during the Napoleonic Wars between 1808, 1814, 1815, something like that. It became known as the Spanish prisoner scam, and it was all conducted, obviously there was no internet or telegrams back then, it was all conducted through the mail. And the form that the scam took, and this is all going to sound very familiar, but it took the form of a letter from a supposed Spanish nobleman who'd been captured and taken prisoner during the Peninsular War, and had no access to his fortune and just needed a small sum of money from you in order to bribe his guards to release him, at which point he would quite happily share his fortune with you. Sound familiar? Yeah. It was a hugely successful scam, so much so that it's still around in a different form today. These days we call it the Nigerian money transfer scam, although there are other variations of it, such as the one that I received last week. But like all of these confidence scams, they can only work if you, the mark, are stupid and greedy. So if anybody ever approaches you with the promise of a lot of money later if you will just give them a little bit of money now, and they're not a stockbroker, or given what, stockbrokers and the world's financial institutions have done to the world in the last 10 years, especially if they're a stockbroker, just think to yourself, does this sound too good to be true? And if it does sound too good to be true, it's probably because it isn't true, so don't do it. And if it doesn't sound too good to be true, if it sounds perfectly reasonable, you're probably motivated by greed and stupidity, so don't do it. Sadly, there are more than enough stupid and greedy people in the world that this scam has been incredibly successful for hundreds of years, and sadly, until we stop raising children to be stupid and greedy adults, it's probably not going to go away anytime soon. Oh, actually, that reminds me. This is something that I noticed last week that I thought was particularly amusing, and again, it's kind of related to Rita. But I'm watching Rita's live stream, and the thing that you have to understand is that I first met Rita when she was 24 and I was 45. So it was quite some time ago, and Rita, of course, was born in 1991, so she's a millennial. And it kind of escaped your attention, even if you're not a member of either of these generational groups, that people of my generation, Generation X, love to give people of Rita's generation, the millennials, tons of shit. And of course it's reciprocated. The standard millennial response to a member of Generation X giving them shit was just brush them off with the reply, okay boomer, even though, we're not actually members of the baby boomer generation, which of course is what makes it funny. I get it, but that's not really the point. I'm watching, and it's not just Rita, other people of her generation, because the millennials are getting older. I mean, obviously, Rita's going to be 31 this year. Obviously, she's not going to thank me for telling you that, but it's true. And one thing that I've noticed when I've been watching live streams from people of that millennial generation is that they're now starting to give people of Generation Z exactly the same shit that I was giving them 10 years ago. the millennials are now at the stage where they're coming out with stuff like, oh my God, kids these days, they don't know they're born. And I and other people of my generation are just sitting back going, yeah, you see, now you understand. And I think that's hilarious. Well, sadly, that's all I really have time for today. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, I suddenly got extremely busy all of a sudden, and I'm likely to remain so for at least the next 3 or 4 weeks. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you all had a great weekend. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.